Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Another canceled Marvel movie was just revealed, and it is a big one. It was another Hulk movie, which shouldn't come as a surprise now. It seems like Hulk movies are cursed now. We actually found out about this from the Fantastic Four panel at C2E2 Comic-Con convention this past week with Michael Chiklis and Ioan Gruffudd, who came back to talk about their classic Fantastic Four and how their characters fit into the new MCU because of Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars relying so heavily on the multiverse. There are going to be so many characters coming back in these movies that pretty much any time an actor tells you that they're not sure if they're coming back, they're probably lying and they are probably going to come back at some point. We literally just saw their Johnny Storm, Human Torch, come back in Deadpool and Wolverine with Chris Evans, who references Ioan Gruffudd's version of Reed Richards while he's talking to Deadpool and Wolverine about the Void in different timelines. So their version of the Fantastic Four movies, their characters are already canon to the MCU. I know a lot of people are asking if they're going to show up in Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars at some point or in a Marvel movie. It sounds like eventually they will. And we've already started seeing a lot of fan art of Thing fighting the Hulk in the MCU now that the Fantastic Four have become a much bigger thing in present day. We found out that this canceled Hulk movie was actually going to be a Hulk versus the Thing solo movie, which sounds amazing, like why don't they do that right now? With Michael Chiklis' Ben Grimm fighting Eric Bana's Hulk. Ever since the new Fantastic Four First Steps movie, I've seen people wanting to see Mark Ruffalo's Hulk versus the new Thing. Who would win in that fight? There is a long comic book history of the Thing and the Hulk fighting that pretty much answers that question. I'll explain that later in the video. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had them fight all the time. This has been something that people have been trying to do for a long time now. There were even fan films as early as 1982 made based on the Hulk versus the Thing. This one was particularly inspired by the Incredible Hulk TV series, which had just been canceled in 1982. So like they shot this right after the TV show had just been canceled. But they explained this modern Marvel movie, big budget $200 million version of a Thing versus Hulk solo movie was going to take place after Fantastic Four 2 Rise of the Silver Surfer. You'll notice that's the same year that The Incredible Hulk was released with Edward Norton and Iron Man movie. It was the beginning of the actual MCU, so there was a lot happening right around those couple of years. He actually explained that at the time, Universal and Fox had come to an agreement to share the Hulk in the Fantastic Four characters like Sony sharing Spider-Man with Marvel in present day. You almost can't believe that Universal would be willing to share a character with another studio like that. They have so much trouble making Hulk solo movies now in present day too.
Of course. Fuck, it's genius. Why didn't I think of that?
And the movie would have played out similar to a lot of their classic fights in the comics. Someone manipulates the Hulk, pushing him to rampage, going Savage Hulk, stealing weapons, destroying military assets, dangerous technology, resources, and making it seem like the Hulk is responsible for all this catastrophe. The Fantastic Four are called to help, but because it was going to be a Hulk versus the Thing solo movie, they had to create a story excuse to explain why the Fantastic Four are busy and only the Thing can help. In the early Stan Lee, Jack Kirby comics, when they would fight, he would just give Reed Richards some passing sickness to say that he was too ill to fight, like he needs to stay in bed, he can't come fight the Hulk. In the actual movie, it would have just been another crisis that the other three Fantastic Four would have to deal with. During the movie, the Thing fights the Hulk a couple times across the movie. Hulk is usually able to stomp the Fantastic Four in stories where they do have multiple fights. Ben Grimm then learns about this other villain manipulating the Hulk and that the Hulk is just being framed for all this and tries to help him, and during their second fight later in the movie, he's able to stun him with a well-placed punch because he's a much more skilled fighter than the Hulk, then get him to change back into Banner before things escalate and he's not able to stop him anymore. Then the two of them, Hulk and Thing, go after the real villain, Banner changing back into the Hulk for the final boss fight, but Hulk and Thing fighting together against him. They didn't explain who the main villain of this was going to be, only that it would have been a Hulk and Fantastic Four comic book villain who they weren't going to be using in Fantastic Four 2 Rise of Silver Surfer, so like it wasn't going to be Doctor Doom. Interestingly enough, Robert Downey Jr. actually screen tested for Doctor Doom in the first Fantastic Four movie, but didn't get the role, which I think is the right call. You have to remember this is the early 2000s, so it was that version of Robert Downey Jr. at that time. Even though he probably would have been fantastic in the role, he would not have been able to be Iron Man, and I think his acting style more suits the Iron Man character Tony Stark way better. Like, it's just a much better casting in general. Based on what was happening at the time, my assumption is that the villain of this Hulk and Thing movie would have been the leader, because at the time they were doing this movie, Universal was still using Eric Bana as their main version of Hulk. They hadn't decided to reboot and work with Marvel Studios to help start the MCU with Edward Norton's Incredible Hulk, which then did use the leader character, who they then brought back after like 25 plus years in Captain America 4 Brave New World. They explained the reason why this Hulk vs. Thing movie got canceled was because they were working on it while they were also working on Fantastic Four 2 Rise of the Silver Surfer, and when that movie underperformed according to Fox, even though it made money, Fox didn't think it did well enough, so they canceled any plans for their Fantastic Four 3, and they were going to do a trilogy at the time, which Michael Chiklis and Young Gruffett also complained about again, like how could they not have given us a third movie?
Think of it as purgatory. Reed called it a metaphysical junkyard, where anything useless goes before it gets annihilated forever.
Fox then started working on a Fantastic Four vs. X-Men Civil War movie that would have played out very similar to MCU Captain America Civil War. I've talked about this in the past too, because it is wild that it didn't wind up happening. Chris Evans' Johnny Storm was going to be in the role that Bucky served in MCU Captain America Civil War, causing the Fantastic Four and the X-Men to fight, and it would have been the classic version of the X-Men versus the classic Fantastic Four. This is all happening while Fox is also working on X-Men First Class and then eventually Days of Future Past. Fox canceled that Civil War movie when Bryan Singer said that he would come back to do Days of Future Past, and they decided to do Days of Future Past. Like at the time, they hadn't figured out what they were going to do with the X-Men movies going forward. First Class was a great X-Men movie, but apparently Fox was getting cold feet. So they canceled the Civil War movie in favor of pursuing X-Men Days of Future Past. Fantastic Four gets relegated to their bin in the background on a shelf until they decide to reboot with the Fantastic Four cast in 2015. We saw what happened with that failure, another reboot, but this time in the MCU with Fantastic Four First Steps, and now we're heading for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Young Gruffett claimed that he hasn't been contacted by Marvel yet to come back, but he wants to. I don't know how much I believe that. Like, this is full Andrew Garfield, this is a Photoshop kind of meme. I think when Marvel decided on Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars plans a couple years ago to finish the multiverse arc, they went back and contacted every living major Marvel movie actor from all those classic pre-MCU movies just to see if they'd be available the next couple years or interested in coming back at all in case they wanted to use them. So his Reed Richards could still show up during Secret Wars. They could even bring him back as the Maker because they've already been talking about doing Fantastic Four sequels. They've even been talking about doing a Spider-Man Fantastic Four movie crossover in the sequels too. Next really big question, who wins in a fight between the Hulk versus the Thing? Who's more powerful? How do they end those fights? Stan Lee and Jack Kirby actually spent a lot of time working through this. The Hulk is much, much stronger because of the way his power scales up so quickly without any real limits, but the Thing is a much more skilled fighter, and his sheer durability gives him enough time to stop the Hulk with a well-placed knockout punch or stun punch before Hulk gets angry enough that his power becomes too great for him to be stopped on his own.
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep.
So when he fights the Hulk, or really when anybody fights the Hulk, it's really more about fighting smart and ending the fight very quickly. Mostly his attacks are only enough to briefly stun Hulk for a second. And in a lot of their fights, usually the Fantastic Four or the Thing by himself are able to de-escalate by getting the Hulk to change back into Banner form, and that's the only other real effective way to end fights with the Hulk. Get him to change back into Banner, and that holds true for pretty much everybody in the MCU. Probably one of the best examples of this phenomenon is the World War Hulk arc, where basically the entire Marvel Universe, like all the heroes, all the different teams, face Hulk one at a time, and he stomps every single one of them. It is really only the Sentry that's able to fight the Hulk to a standstill. Like, that's how powerful you have to be to fight Hulk to a standstill. And even then, it's only after extreme circumstances that he eventually turns back into Banner that the fight actually ends. So remember, the only real effective way to stop the Hulk is to get him to change back into Banner. We will actually be seeing a version of this during Spider-Man Brand New Day later this year when Bruce Banner goes back into Savage Hulk form, or a version of the Hulk after his inhibitor gets damaged. There are a lot of rumors about how this goes down, a lot of rumors about Sadie Sink being a version of Jean Grey and being the one to either cause him to Hulk out or to cause him to stop, or maybe both. One of the most effective ways to get Hulk to change back into Banner is to have a powerful telepath on hand like Jean Grey. Hulk and Thing have fought at least 12 times in the comics, starting in Amazing Spider-Man #1, like very first issue of his solo comic book after Amazing Fantasy #15. Amazing Spider-Man was his first actual solo comic book. Based on what we've seen from the Avengers Doomsday trailers so far, it doesn't seem like Bruce Banner Hulk is like a really big part of that story, but it would be weird if they completely leave Hulk out from Avengers Doomsday. We know he's going to be real big during Avengers Secret Wars. There was all that leaked concept art with him, She-Hulk, and Scar, his son, but I'm assuming that they have changed that plot a little bit. I don't know what She-Hulk is going to be doing during any of these movies. Supposedly there's been all kinds of rumors about her character. But of course Hulk himself, Bruce Banner, will be in these movies at some point. If he does wind up being in Avengers Doomsday, I'm assuming he's a lesser character and they're choosing to focus on the Chair Watch characters more prominently, like the ones that they did show you, with a couple of exceptions, maybe like a couple of surprise characters that we've just learned out about recently are going to be the actual main characters of that movie. Then, like Infinity War and Endgame, they'll use a slightly different cast of characters that they didn't focus on during Avengers Doomsday, and that's why they didn't reveal every single person. Spider-Man Brand New Day is also supposed to explain what Spider-Man and Sadie Sink's character are doing when Avengers Doomsday picks up, why they're not like super big characters during that movie, but they do come back during Avengers Secret Wars. My assumption is it'll be similar for Bruce Banner Hulk. They'll explain what's happening with him and why he's not around during Avengers Doomsday, if he is not in that movie, or if he's in it in some small way, why he's not on the main Avengers team, really present in all the action scene to scene. Probably has something to do with him raging out into Savage Hulk again. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and let me know what you want them to do with the Thing and the Hulk characters going forward in the future. They can literally do anything that they want. They have pretty much unlimited money, so it is crazy that a lot of these great fan film ideas that were done way back during the 1980s, even the 1970s, still have not gotten big budget versions. Now that we're getting closer to Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out, we'll get more trailers for that, but we'll also probably get teasers and trailers for Avengers Doomsday, so I'll do videos for all those things as we do get more footage. We also just found out about the Defenders all coming back on Daredevil Born Again Season 3. I just did a video for that. Click here for that, and click here for all my other Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.